Hello, I'm Bob Weeks for Wichita Liberty TV, your weekly source for news, analysis, and commentary about Wichita and Kansas government and public policy. We're broadcast on KGPT, channel 26.1, also its companion website, kgpt26.com. Some of you may know me from my blog, The Voice for Liberty, at wichitaliberty.org. There the motto is individual liberty, limited government, and free markets in Wichita and Kansas. I cover things that may not be covered by other news media in Wichita and Kansas, or if we do cover the same news, I'll do it from the perspective of economic freedom, limited government, and individual liberty, because these are the things that are important. And these are the things that we find so often under attack by our governments at the federal, state, and local levels. So please visit wichitaliberty.org. You can subscribe to the email newsletter I send 2 or 3 times a week. You can like Voice for Liberty on Facebook. You can follow me on Twitter. And if you want to contact me, my email address is pretty easy to remember, bob.weeks@gmail.com. Well, unless you've been hibernating, you probably know that in November, Wichita voters will decide whether the city will add a 1 cent per dollar sales tax. The proceeds will be used for a new water supply, job development, street repair, and to support the Wichita transit system. Now, in our first segment today, I'd like to give you a few small reasons why you can comfortably vote no on the sales tax. Now, a principle of taxation is that it should be applied equally to everyone in similar situations. That's just plain being fair with everyone. But when High Touch Technologies wanted to purchase and improve the building that houses its headquarters in downtown Wichita, the company asked for and received property tax relief and also an exemption from paying sales taxes. Now, so far this story is not unusual. Many companies receive this type of tax relief. Some of it get it year after year, to the tune of some $658 million in the case of Boeing. But the case of High Touch Technologies is of more than usual interest. Now, at the time of the request in November 2013 by the company's chief executive officer, a man named Wayne Chambers, well, he had just been selected as the chairman of the Wichita Metro Chamber of Commerce. Now, the Chamber of Commerce, along with its subsidiary, the Greater Wichita Economic Development Coalition, these are the main agencies in charge of economic development for the Wichita area. And under Wayne Chambers' leadership, these organizations recommended that the City Council authorize a vote on raising the Wichita sales tax for the purposes of economic development. Well, the council did that, and in November, Wichita voters will decide whether to create the city sales tax 1 cent per dollar. So, can I summarize this for you? A Wichita company chief executive officer applied for a sales tax exemption so that his company would not have to pay sales tax. Now this same man wants you to pay more sales tax, even on the food you buy in grocery stores. Does this seem like the law is being applied equally to everyone? Do you think this is fair and just? And this is not an isolated example. Many Wichitans remember the building at the northwest corner of First and Market Streets as the Kansas Gas and Electric Building. Today, under new ownership, this building is being converted to luxury apartments under the name The Lux. Now, the new owners of the Lux felt that they should not have to pay sales tax on things they purchased, like construction materials, while renovating the building. So they approached the city. And in October 2012, the city granted their request and initiated the process whereby the Lux will avoid paying these sales taxes. Now, fast forward 2 years. Now there's a proposal to add 1 cent per dollar to the sales tax in Wichita. And a group named Yes Wichita was formed to promote the higher sales tax. And when Yes Wichita, remember, this group campaigns for you to pay higher sales taxes on nearly everything from baby formula to automobiles. When this group needed campaign headquarters, do you know where it decided to locate? Well, that's right, in the Lux, in a building that does not have to pay sales tax on materials used in its conversion to luxury apartments. Really, I'm not kidding. I'm not making this up. The owner of a downtown luxury apartment building does not want to pay sales tax, but he campaigns for you to pay more sales tax on nearly everything you buy, including your groceries. Now, I've mentioned paying sales tax on food a few times, and I've done that because Kansas is unusual among the states in that regard, because only 14 states apply sales tax to food purchased at grocery stores for home consumption. In all the other states, there is either no sales tax at all or no sales tax on food. States exempt food from taxation in recognition that sales taxes are highly regressive. My research showed that the lowest income class of families experience a cost nearly 4 times the magnitude as do the highest income families when we talk about a percentage of after-tax income. But Kansas is one of the 14 states that apply sales tax to food. And when we look at the statewide sales tax rates applied to food, we see that Mississippi has the highest sales tax rate for food at 7%. Kansas is next at 6.15%, and then Idaho at 6%. And cities and counties often have additional sales taxes. Sedgwick County adds 1% for a total sales tax rate of 7.15%. And if the Wichita proposed sales tax succeeds, the sales tax in Wichita, including on groceries, will be 8.15%. Now, I should note that we in Kansas have the possibility of receiving a food sales tax credit of $125 per person. But this is something that must be applied for, and qualifying conditions must be met. And also, this credit is non-refundable, which means that applicants must have income tax liability of at least $125 to receive the full credit. If you do not owe at least that much in income taxes, you get no sales tax credit. Now, the Yes Wichita group that campaigns for higher sales taxes says that the effect of the sales tax on low-income households is blunted by the fact that 1/3 of the sales tax will be paid from people who visit Wichita. But the City of Wichita, in its explanatory information, cites a Kansas Department of Revenue study that indicates the value is really 13.5%, not the 33% as claimed by the Yes Wichita group. Well, here's something else. For the jobs and economic development portion of the sales tax, the city is promising accountability and transparency. There will be a website that tracks results, they say. That's the promise for the future. But here's the reality of what has been happening. Last October, 1 year ago, the Wichita Eagle asked the city for an accounting of the jobs created over the past decade by tax abatements. And the Wichita Eagle was told this is a research project that urban development staffers have yet to complete. The city's economic development director told the Eagle it will take us some time to pull together all the agenda reports on the 5-year reviews going back to 2003. Now, one might have thought that the city was keeping records on the number of jobs created on at least an annual basis for management purposes. We might have thought that the city would have these figures ready for immediate review. But apparently, that was not the case in October 2013. Well, fast forward almost 1 year. In September, I inquired of the city if this research project had been completed. And the answer was no, but I was told it was almost complete. So I waited a month. It is still not complete. Now, we need to recognize that because the city does not have at its immediate disposal the statistics about job creation, well, I think it's evident that the city is not managing this effort, or maybe the city just doesn't care. But now, you are being promised that everything will change. And based on past experience, I find it difficult to believe these promises. And what about the transparency of the spending of taxpayer money? When I asked for spending records of the Wichita Downtown Development Corporation, I was told I could not have them. That's despite the fact that this organization is nearly totally funded by taxes and should be subject to the Kansas Open Records Act. And when I appeared before the City Council asking for those records, an attorney for WDDC appeared and argued against granting my request. He told the City Council that I was only trying to embarrass the city and that my request had no public purpose. And almost all City Council members agreed with him, including Mayor Carl Brewer. Oh, who was that attorney that said my request for records of the spending of taxpayer money had no public purpose? Well, that was Harvey Sorensen. He is one of the 4 co-chairs of Yes Wichita, the group that campaigns for the new sales tax. The group that promises transparency in how decisions are made and how taxpayer funds are spent. Well, again, another promise. If the city really wants us to believe that it will be open and transparent, it could start by granting the records request that I and Kansas Policy Institute have made. Just one more thing before we take a break. So far this year, Kansas Policy Institute has produced 2 conferences on issues involving the sales tax. A third will be held soon. And in the July conference, the second of 4 presentations was delivered by Wichita Public Works Director Alan King and City Council member Pete Meitzner. City Governmental Affairs Dale Goder and also Council member LaVonna Williams were there in the audience. But after this presentation ended, the 4 city officials left. Well, what did they miss? They missed 2 additional presentations, or half the program. The city officials did not hear a presentation by Dr. Art Hall of Kansas University, which explained novel ideas of using markets for water resources, in particular, how Wichita could secure increased water supply by purchasing water from irrigators and using the infrastructure it already has in place at the equus beds. Dr. Hall explained this to us on Wichita Liberty TV a few weeks ago. And in the final presentation that day, the audience asked questions that the presenter was not able to answer. But city officials like Public Works Director King would have been able to provide the answers. But he wasn't there. It appears that Wichita city officials are not interested in alternatives that were not developed by City Hall. They can't even pretend to be interested. Welcome back to Wichita Liberty TV. I'm Bob Weeks. Well, for the proposed Wichita sales tax, the largest share will go towards a new water supply. 63% of the tax revenue, that's $250 million over 5 years, will go towards what the city has decided will satisfy our water needs. This is the expansion of the Aquifer Storage and Recovery Program, or ASR. People have told me that I should take a look at the production of the ASR system. Many people have told me that. So I took a look. Now, I realize I am not a geologist. I am not a civil engineer with experience in public utilities like water systems. But what I found is more than a little alarming. As a result of my research, I'm concerned that we do not have a track record of success for the ASR program. But we're thinking about putting all of our future eggs in that one basket. Here's a little history. ASR is a system north of Wichita. It draws water from the Little Arkansas River, treats it, and injects it into the equus beds aquifer. That's the recharge process. And then that water is available for use in the future. Wichita already gets 40% of its water from the equus beds. There was ASR Phase 1, and now there is ASR Phase 2. The cost so far is $247 million. In April, our Public Works Director Alan King told the City Council that, based on experience, we now think we will get half the production from ASR as we originally thought. And by production, we mean the amount of water that is treated and injected into the aquifer. So I did the research and I found that the ASR program has not come close to meeting this goal. Remember, this is a goal that was cut in half from the original goal. Now, I understand that ASR Phase 2 came online during a drought. I understand that there's been a learning curve on a project like this. But since July 2013, remember that's when it started raining so much it flooded, the ASR program has not performed anywhere near expectations. In the chart that you see now, I start the horizontal axis with July 2013. You remember when the floods came. The red line on top is what production was originally planned to be. Now, production will not necessarily be smooth, as production happens only on days when there is sufficient water in the river. But over time, this should be the trend. Now, the blue line is the expectation for production after being revised downwards by half. And then at the bottom in purple is actual production. Considering the 12-month stretch starting with July 2013, ASR produced 430 million gallons of recharged water. That is 23% of expected production, even after expectations were cut in half. Now, when I presented this information to the City Council this week, Alan King, the Public Works Director, said, "The information Mr. Weeks presented is accurate." But he said my conclusions are not correct. He told the council that during the time frame of this chart, the city was not looking to run at maximum production levels. We were operating the facility in the most efficient manner possible, he told the council. We were testing the individual components, and he also said we are still in a commissioning phase. Well, so based on this, that we are still in a commissioning phase, that we have not been running at maximum production levels for any reasonably long period of time, I believe we do not have enough experience to conclude that ASR is working. Couldn't we wait until the ASR project is working at even half its design goal before making a decision to proceed with its expansion? This is too big a decision to make based on the scant evidence we have, especially when we are asking low-income and fixed-income households to pay more sales tax on groceries to fund this project, especially when Cheney Reservoir is full and there is no immediate water crisis. Now, I've done research on how an increase in sales tax affects households of different levels of income. Later, the Wichita Eagle produced similar results, and I showed that as a percent of after-tax income, the proposed sales tax increase is 4 times as costly for low-income households as it is for high-income households. And remember, regarding a new water supply, we are not worried about running out of drinking water. We're not worried about running out of water for industry and commercial users. We're talking about restricting the watering of golf courses and lawns during an extended drought. We're talking about not being able to wash cars during an extended drought. And the city is asking low-income households to pay more sales tax on their food at the grocery store so that lawns in wealthy neighborhoods may remain green at reasonable cost. Well, here's something else that troubles me regarding the water portion of the proposed sales tax. In the city's informational material, again, this is the material meant to educate us on the issues, it said that if the sales tax does not pass, the city will use long-term debt to pay for ASR expansion, and that will cost an extra $221 million in interest expense. That course of action, that is, using debt to pay for ASR expansion, is presented as a bad choice. Well, I want to remind you that the city borrowed over $200 million in long-term debt to pay for the present ASR system. That's almost as much as the cost of the proposed ASR expansion. Let me emphasize that. The city's informational material says if voters do not pass the sales tax, the city will do something unwise. But the city did that very same bad thing to pay for the current ASR project, that is, borrow money and pay interest. But now the city says, pass the sales tax, or we will do something bad to you. Pass the sales tax, or the city will issue long-term debt and you will pay a lot of interest. Pass the sales tax, or we will do again what we did to pay for the current ASR project, and that would be bad for you and the city. These are the choices the city gives voters, but other alternatives are available. If the city is concerned about the cost of debt financing, well, why not raise the money for ASR through a period of higher water bills for 5 years? This has the obvious benefit of having the people who actually use water pay for it. The cost of ASR expansion could be a separate line item on water bills so that we are acutely aware of how much this system costs. And it's important that we be aware of these costs. When paid through a sales tax, it's difficult to track the money and know the total cost of the system to you. That's something the city and the Yes Wichita group counts on. In fact, they say the sales tax is just 1 cent. Just 1 penny for every dollar you spend. You won't even notice its impact. Paying for a new water supply through water bills would let commercial and industrial users participate in paying the costs of the water supply project. These water users usually don't pay very much sales tax. A restaurant, for example, does not pay sales tax on the food ingredients it purchases. An aircraft manufacturer does not pay sales tax on the raw materials and components parts it buys. But these companies do have a water bill. Yet, the city recommends that low-income households pay more sales tax on their groceries. The city says this is the best way to pay for a new water supply to protect our lawns and golf courses during a drought. Here's a thought. Sedgwick County government is in a beneficial position regarding the water supply issue. The city is too wrapped up, too invested in advancing the ASR project. There are some big egos and political careers involved. There is an engineering firm that sees a big contract in its future. Since Sedgwick County government is not in the business of providing water, it does not have these distractions and distortions. I think this places the county in the position of a referee, as an unbiased observer. This is a governmental body that sincerely wants a secure water future for its largest city and for many of the smaller cities and residents that get their water from the Wichita system. Remember, many cities like Derby rely on the Wichita water system for their water. Collecting funds through water bills lets these customers help pay for the cost of a new water supply. Now, if city voters decide against the sales tax, which I hope is the outcome of the election, then the county commission could take the lead. It could commission a study of water issues. And since the county is not in the business of providing water, the study could be free of the biases and ambitions that affect whatever the city of Wichita does. This study could be conducted by an engineering firm that is not advocating for its own interests, as I fear is happening with the city of Wichita. I realize this would cost money and take time, but the city is rushing into what I fear will be a costly mistake from which the city will not be able to recover. Remember, Cheney Lake is full. There is no immediate water crisis. We do not have to rush to make a decision about expanding a system that has not yet entered full production, a system that is still in the commissioning stage. Wichita voters should not accept the false choices our city government is giving us. Well, in case you haven't noticed, I recommend that you vote no on the sales tax. And that's it for this week on Wichita Liberty TV. Thank you for watching. I'm Bob Weeks.